The Declaration of Independence continues to be, I think, one of the most revolutionary documents the world has ever seen. And here in 2023, we are now almost 3 years away from the 250th anniversary of the writing and release of the Declaration.
It still resonates with us as Americans and as around the world as the emblem of humanity, what Abraham Lincoln had called it in 1858. For all the arguments over whether or not the phrase "all men are created equal" means what it says, I think the testament, the fact that the nation has always advanced. While we might do horrible things, we always attempt to do good.
One of the issues that I think still confounds us about the Declaration, people openly question it, whether Jefferson meant what he wrote. And I think the answer is unequivocally, he meant exactly what he wrote. Jefferson was writing about a self-evident fact that all men are created equal. And the term "all men" is phraseology. It means humanity. As Jefferson is laying out a case that there's a difference between natural law, rights given to us by a creator or a god, and the sort of arbitrary, nonsensical laws we often apply to one another down here on earth. There is a distinct difference between the two. And what he wrote in the Declaration is about natural law.
In so many ways, even today, almost 250 years after the document was written and put out for the world to see, in a truly revolutionary moment, they're still wrong in the eyes of so many people. The majority then said that they couldn't possibly get away with this revolution. There's no way that this band of men could lead a nation and spark a republic. And then there's still today those that would argue that they're wrong because they didn't mean what they said. And yet, we still live in the republic that the document created and founded. We still have the liberties that Jefferson outlined. We take a great deal of personal identity with the document itself.
Jefferson's personal views on slavery, I think, are complex, but they're not necessarily out of tune with what a lot of people thought at the time. And this is the conundrum. See, we often contort ourselves into, well, they were slave owners, how could they mean this? I'm not trying to be trivial about this, but human beings can actually have two independent thoughts at the same time. They can believe in something and perhaps not follow personally those practices. He was making an eternal statement from the beginning of time to the end of time that human beings are created equal. The irony, of course, is that slavery is absolutely at odds with natural equality. These people were the very progressive members of society. This wasn't the conservative faction of the old English crown or colonial America. These were uber radicals. If you read the Declaration, the first part is about the natural rights of man. He doesn't get into the grievances until later, which indicates in Jefferson's mind and the minds of the founders, the statement about equality is paramount. It trumps everything else. I find one of the more fascinating aspects of the Declaration is a section that's not included in the final version. There was a piece that was so inflammatory, it actually was completely removed. That original draft contained a full-on assault on the slave trade. In fact, Jefferson didn't even call him King George. He simply called him the Christian King, which again is Jefferson's way of attacking organized religion as being the thing that promotes and protects this insidious kidnapping of human beings. And he actually said an entire group of people are taken from one hemisphere to another who've done him no wrong. This was so upsetting to other slave owners, they would never encompass a direct attack on the institution, and so it was cut out. I think Jefferson understood this was a problem, and if we didn't deal with this problem in making this statement, we were going to twist ourselves into knots in years to come, and I think in many ways he was right.
In Chicago in 1858, Abraham Lincoln talked about the Declaration. He said, "I am a poor hand to quote scripture," but he talked about the admonitions of the Lord, where he says, "Your Father in heaven is perfect, so too must ye also be perfect." He said that the Declaration is that same sort of idea. It sets up a level of perfection. Jefferson never anticipated that we would be so perfect as the words that he wrote, but we had to try for it. We had to struggle to attain it.
There are a couple of things that happen in the 1840s and the 1850s that send us spiraling towards civil war. Is once again the Declaration of Independence rears itself almost as a living document, because John C. Calhoun knows you cannot prop up the perpetuation of slavery and then hold the line, "all men are created equal," on the same plane. And so at one point, Calhoun, in a speech about Oregon becoming a state, actually says there were only 2 people ever created. That's not a misreading of the document. That's Calhoun's effort to say it doesn't mean what it says. And then by the 1850s, Abraham Lincoln maneuvers Stephen Douglas into a sort of political box where Douglas actually says the Declaration only means white Europeans. Right there, you can see why Abraham Lincoln becomes the greatest threat, and he is the greatest connection to the founding generation. He is of that mindset. He is just born in a different time, and he's very much in the minority, North and South.
If there's one phrase that school kids learn about the Declaration, is that they learn that paragraph. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator certain inalienable rights, that among which are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We still strive to attain that. In just a few years, we will be celebrating the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence and the Revolution. And there are so many places that you can go. You can tour the Revolutionary War battlefields. You can go to Boston and see where the Tea Party was held. You can go to Philadelphia and stand in Independence Hall. And then you can go to Washington and stand in the footsteps of the Jefferson Memorial. You can go to the Washington Monument, passing by on the way the Martin Luther King Memorial. And then you can stand at the footsteps of the Lincoln Memorial. And there you see the man that wrote it, the man that led the revolution, the man that saved the nation, sparked by the revolution, and a man who dared to have a dream that the nation could be better. And to incorporate all of those things in your reflection and in your understanding of where we are 250 years later is really to reflect on the legacy of the Declaration itself.